Buongiorno.
Good morning everybody. Thank you very much indeed to be here for this meeting on how culture and creativity are crucial tools to connect communities and to develop communities. So,
our guest who is here with us is going to follow the whole speech and introduce a little bit myself. My name is Luca Ballarini. I'm founder and creative director of design agency Bellissimo, Turin-based, and also director of a non-profit association that is called Torino Stratosferica, and that in the last, I would say, 6-7 years has dedicated a lot of effort in building communities related to city making, in a way. So we're going to speak with Skinder, especially about this topic, of course, of communities. But I also wanted to brief introduce why I've been selected by BTO to interview our guest, and that's, I think, because of what I've been doing with my team in the last 5-6 years. So very briefly to introduce you to these topics, Torino Stratosferica, which I'm now representing, is started in 2014 as a collective experiment that was aiming to, in a way, to change the image of the city, and that fostered the kind of idea of city imaging as a process to create powerful narratives about the city itself and its future. And we started this work specifically appealing to the cultural and creative industry of our city, Turin, Italy. So that was the idea, and we went through a lot of visioning sessions to understand how could the desires and the ideas of these leaders, creative and cultural leaders, could lead to somehow create an image of the city itself that was more convincing, more powerful, and definitely more appealing. So we went through a lot of these visioning sessions, and of course that was in itself a way to connect the community, the best part of the cultural and creative life of our city, into a whole discourse about the potential of the city itself. The second, and of course you can go on and visit the website of all these projects I'm talking about by yourself to get deeper into that. The second project, which is again very much focused on building communities and fostering creative, let's say, unleash creative powers in people, is Urban Creative City Break. Again, creative industry is at the core. It's a city break of 3-4 days that go in exploration of very dynamic cities throughout Europe and also Asia and United States, to find out about urban novelties and also to have some professional learnings through the meetings that we have again with leaders of the creative, architectural, the arts industry, and so on. So it's very much about understanding how entrepreneurship in this industry can be, in a way, pursued and accomplished. And it's definitely a way to have some inspirational networking by visiting cities and get to know the core of the work of the people working around these cities. And the last, these are some pictures of some of the trips that we've made in the last 5 years. It's a unique format in itself. It's an unparalleled way to get to know cities, and it's still a unique offer on the market. And the last one is the most recent, is a placemaking experience, which is very much also changing my perspective as a creative director and entrepreneur about how we can engage with communities, local communities, and how we can create civic engagement in a way through the idea of urban ecology, which is right now very much important, especially for what we have, to tackle for this global pandemic. And so here the idea it was very simple, to revive a part of the city that was unused because the tram line is not running anymore on this stretch of land, and to give it back to the people, to give it back to the citizenship by, just doing some urban design, very light, temporary, involving people in building these new, in a way, facilities and save the public space, to give it back to the people who are eager to use it in other ways, to change the function from an infrastructure to a public park. And so, of course, as you can see, we made gatherings, readings, concerts, plays. It's definitely become Precollina Park in Turin, a place to be, a place to visit, and again we're linking back to the concept of urban novelty. But all of these would be impossible without the the involvement of the local people and of course also of the their will to be civically engaged in this process. So I just wanted to give you these three examples of these three works that I've done in my latest years of my latest part of my career, to talk in a way, to spark the dialogue with Skinder Hundal, which is here with us. He's director of the arts of the British Council, but he's also done very different, many different things in his career. So Skinder, I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to to exchange ideas on this topic of how creative culture, creativity and culture can enable us to build communities. So please, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you, Luca, for that introduction. And I feel like I want to do an art trick with you. What you just showed us looks tremendous and brilliant. And I always have to remind myself. Well, actually, I don't have to remind myself. I seem to spend a lot of time reminding others the power of art and culture and architecture in particular. And that, when you think about what art and culture tries to do in terms of it intervening or providing an alternative lens. It reminds me of the James Baldwin quote where he talks about the idea that, art is the medium in which we reveal the unseen question or questions. And there are many questions we ask of our city, or there are many questions on the tip of our tongue. But when we engage artists, they uncover questions that we had not revealed. And, my story is that, I've been working in the arts now since '92. So I feel like I'm becoming a fossil fuel, and I'm going to have to reinvigorate and solarize my vision. But if I were to look back at what has happened, there's been many, many interesting examples of seeing how, art culture plays a significant role in placemaking and revitalizing and renewing space. And so I'm going to share a couple of examples today and talk about maybe something broader around what British Council's work is in terms of building cultural relations, but also building a sense of place, identity, exchange, and a new vision for the future. It's very clear that 21 years into the new century, we are in a bit of a pickle or a bit of a mess. And so artists play a crucial role in transforming and finding what I say is the kind of the feeling and emotion of knowledge and wisdom and that we can have all this data, all these statistics, but without the feeling and understanding and emotion of that information, we can't realize knowledge and wisdom. So I was running a gallery in New Art Exchange. It's a periphery space. It was known for all the wrong reasons. And before I came to, so high levels of poverty, crime, low educational attainment. Its reputation outside of that location was that it was a neighborhood probably not to live in and probably not to visit. And yet I spent many years there as a student and as a resident, therefore, and realized, well, actually, there's something quite interesting about it. And I came across an art space which was roots-led by communities, and they, in the end, formed an amazing art gallery by taking down an old Victorian space and revitalizing the location through the kind of experience of artists. And so this kind of, reinterpretation of something that was quite negative, art and culture played a key role in attracting new people into the location, but also working with our local communities. This was really important. So working with the local traders, working with local community groups that were looking at some of the critical issues around the society we were living in. And I've got some slides to share as well, Luca.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I just share screen, this is the bit where I'm at risk of messing it up. Okay, let's try. Okay, here we go.
Great.
Right. So I'm going to show you some visuals. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to start with this whole thing about what I'm doing right now. So I'm at British Council. I'm Director of Arts. I've been here since last year. It's going to be a year soon, actually. And, in a sense, the whole ethos of our arts program is about connection. It's about understanding. It's about bringing collaborative and building those creative global communities that, in a sense, inspire, innovate, share that kind of knowledge, bring prosperity and share it, but also a sense of peace. As communities, there's a lot of conflict in the world we're in. And I think it's important that we think about our place, our people, and in a way where there is a sense of well-being, a sense of future. And this image here is this idea of a neighborhood gallery becoming a kind of a spaceship portal for a magnificent transformation. That was the kind of vision, and I think that kind of genuine desire for change was owned by the community, and that's why I would say that this space in the UK, which is now nationally significant, internationally working, and locally engaged, is a powerful metaphor, or even an example of change. And here in this image, you see this wonderful Sufi artist with his very cool sneakers on and his very traditional costume. And in the back, you have this contemporary space, this black cube that says New Art Exchange, so exchanging art in new ways. And this space in Hyson Green, inner city Nottingham, is not untypical of many inner city locations in the UK, which have many challenges. The intersection of different communities coming together, the issues around getting to connect. There's no better way of doing that through art culture. Culture has a whole spectrum of areas. But if I was to think about architecture, design, and then activity, this is a great example of something that works really well, where it kind of instigates solution, not only through the kind of lens of artists, but also through civic leadership. So it's really important that, when to realize a project like this, that the civic leadership are on side. And there's some really good examples of placemaking in the UK. So, for example, Margate with Turner Contemporary has completely transformed how Margate is perceived. Margate was a seaside resort town that was failing, and it was failing for decades. And with the emergence of a new kind of civic kind of pride in creating art and culture, the Turner Contemporary arrived. And now importing solutions is also a very dangerous thing, because it just won't work, because people reject it. And I always remember when we did New Art Exchange, a lot of people would say to me, this kind of, what is this black prism that has arrived? Because it had small windows, and people were confused and they felt alienated by its design. And it was a black brick building within the kind of red brick history of a Victorian space. So it was already at a point of confrontation, as is the traditional costume you see here in the dancer and the building behind. And in the end, though, it was through activity and through our community relations, through our board members, our teams, that convinced the community to engage. The next image is, gives you an idea of the space inside. And here you've got, an artist, a range of artists that are looking at Middle Eastern cultures and looking at masculinity through the lens of a female artist. So the idea of bringing in topics and discussions that would disrupt the status quo was really important, and becoming a center of excellence for the idea of a future diverse narrative, i.e. stimulating new perspectives about what diversity meant within the society we were in, became a real attraction. And so those that were into understanding the world we were in and the kind of multitude of different cultures that existed would come to New Art Exchange, and that became a distinct USP, so unique selling point of the place of Hyson Green. And Hyson Green's history is that it's a fluid space of existing working class communities, but also transient communities who are either seeking asylum, refugees, economic migrants, etc., who arrive in this location. So to understand that and to find a respectful common ground, the art space played such a significant role. One of my favorite experiences was in Italy, actually, in Matera, the European capital of culture. And here we were looking at activating the idea of space that had been disused or abandoned, or kind of abandoned by the authorities or abandoned by communities, because it became a no space, or it was a park in the middle of a sort of the lower end of Matera, which connected a neighborhood into the main city. It didn't seem to have an identity, and it was vandalized. It was, the graffiti wasn't cool. It was kind of dysfunctional. And so one of the ideas was to look at, through this Architecture of Shame program, was to look at, what is it that, architectural space, or the psychology of space, provides a city, and how do local communities then work with the idea of external agents arriving, we being the external agents. And we did this project with Farm Cultural Park based in Sicily, and with the Architecture of Shame group, which was led by Fabio Chiaravella. And so the whole program was about disrupting, animating, revitalizing, and offering the community a co-designed moment, so that we were not compromising our experiences, but we were animating and engaging the lived experience of local community, and of course our own perspectives and theories. And some of these theories were not apparently relevant to the day-to-day operation, but when embedded through pragmatic or practical action, we would see a significant change. And, we called it party in the park. So you keep it's almost art is at the heart of the party. And so that's what we did. And we created various sort of interventions. So this was an architectural intervention that was playful. So basically it was branded according to our program, and you could enter a space that was inflated. And it was almost this idea of this kind of futurology of culture within a portal that provided a dreamlike space. And in that space, we animated it with a whole range of activities. So there were performances in this space, there were workshops in this space, and so forth. And if you look at the space, you can see it's quite bland. It's kind of run down. It was very, very hot in the summer, so we created these kind of celebratory kind of sort of shading, and then we transformed space. I mean, if you were to look at the space in its final look, it was incredible. And what was amazing was that the local communities, after observing this, this third space of inventive third eye that brought their lived experience, their culture into a space that was transformed, they wanted to take that space on. So they created a community association, and they now run various events in that park, I've been told. And we worked with, I think, a guy called Gizmo, who was one of the local guys. The project around Matera is very interesting. I mean, this Open City program was really a project we did with IAC. Andrea San Antonio is the director there, and we worked with an artist from Korea, and this was exploring again the kind of contemporary barriers of life, and how do we make a space that is very local to local communities, but has a very significant history of its own within a global context of a European capital of culture. And the artist here is So-Yeon Chung, and she's from Seoul in Korea. And her whole thing was about creating installation. And so you've got this, you've got this kind of very kind of, again, this futuresque architecture that arrives, and you can see that the artists are engaging using this infrastructure, but at the same time discussing what are the kind of local barriers, what are the walls of separation, particularly in the age we are in, and how do we look at political ideologies in this kind of age of algorithm and AI. And so that kind of local context was sort of animated through the kind of physical use of promenade theatre, site-specific, using this theory of algorithms which work on a global level. So the idea of technology coming together to engage communities and contexts worldwide. And you can see the cast of the community here is made up of cultures which are from Matera, from South Italy, but also from other parts of the world, from sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa. So there's plenty more examples of this, Luca. So mini golf in Venice was an interesting idea. We talk about place being central, but also it's our place on tour. So when we're creating projects that have been born and birthed from a neighborhood, how do they then travel? So we entered an area called San Pietro. So San Pietro was, part of Venice, and we did a survey when we worked with our local team and our residents from South Italy, actually, from Altamira and Bari and Matera itself, and we went to talk to the local communities in Venice. Now, Venice is a great example of cultural tourism, placemaking, through its architectural biennial, but also its art biennial. And this is quite a playful scene. It's basically a golf course of 9 installations, and this installation is Ellie Harrison's she's from Glasgow. And what you see here is quite playful. So you've got the canal.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just have just a few minutes, I think 1 or 2, and then we have to finish. Sorry about that.
Okay, I mean, so basically, what I wanted to say about this project was that this is a project whereby you arrive in somebody else's city, you arrive in somebody else's neighborhood, and the whole thing is about, engaging communities. So this was a project where we found out that the local community weren't too happy about Venice Biennale because they were never invited to the events. So we designed the pavilion with the local community to create a sense of place and ownership. And in the end, the community was so excited about the golf course, they wanted to keep it forever. And they had petitions to say, we want to keep this forever. I mean, the key thing I'd just like to kind of get across, I mean, there's loads of other examples, and we won't have time to do it. But I think the kind of principles of, the idea of creating places, that there needs to be, for me, it's always about a compelling shared vision, that's owned by the lived experience of local communities, but also the expertise of those kind of the third eye imaginary, I call it, i.e. those people who can come in and nudge one another. So there is a mutual exchange that creates a series of multi-mutual outcomes that then, in a sense, take forward the idea of what a place can be and then becomes. And you see that kind of transformation. It's clear to me, though, that art and culture has to be central, and it cannot be an ecosystem and bubble of its own. It has to engage and communicate with sort of wider sectoral elements that create an ecology. So be that science, be that technology, be that health, regeneration, be that politics, and having the civic leaders on side and engaged is a critical part of the work. So it's the idea of the roots development being really grounded and the top level decision makers engaged, and then if we can get the middle ground to understand that, then change will happen and the place will change. And we've seen great examples of that. So I'll stop sharing and I'll finish there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, it was very inspiring and insightful. Just a 30 seconds question and answer because we're running out of time here. But what particularly I got from your presentation is this idea that we can get to another level through the use of creativity, arts, and its installation in public space, and this kind of transcendental leap to something else. You spoke about knowledge and wisdom even, and I'm just wondering, both as a cultural entrepreneur and as a placemaker, that knows all the technicalities of doing something in the public space, in the outdoor, and with the people and all their needs and conflictuality. How do you feel that we can, in a way, give some feedback to people and their real needs, specifically in terms of public space, and at the same time to aim to a higher level of knowledge and in a way, and bring arts and creativity in this public realm to somehow magnify this sense of wisdom and transcendental that we have. We need and we long for.
Yes, well, for me it's about investment, Luca, and it's about that starting on every level. So it's understanding and mapping the ecology that makes a city work, and seeing then how the blind spots, the unseen questions art provides, can be realized through active spaces, be that at school, be that at college, university, be that in the markets. The public space is the space we travel through. We all own it in many ways. So it's the place where the egalitarian or the space of equality should be. Yet we know that our communities are divided. So there's a huge kind of educational mission, I think, for the work of local cities, and the arts and the arts fraternity itself needs to engage proactively and also share the impacts and knowledge and wisdom. And I always say that ART stands for Art Realizing Transcendence, and so you use the term transcendental, which I really love, because it is about shape-shifting into a portal that accelerates what is of high value. And what is of high value are our ideas, our imagination, our creativity, to create conscious, creative, collaborative, courageous communities that can take on the challenges of the world we're in today. Those that are local, but are contexted with the kind of global macro politics and macro geopolitics, actually. So climate, inclusion, well-being, new economy. These are the big challenges of today, and we've got to be embedded within that.
Skinder, thank you so much for these very deep and inspiring words. We can, of course, go on with this conversation, a transcendental conversation very early in the morning. That would be amazing, but of course we have to leave the stage to someone else. So thank you again for being with us, and we'll be in touch, of course. Thank you.
Shanti.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Grazie a tutti.